Hey everyone, it's Alan with Earthglow. Welcome back to another new video. In today's video, we are going to be making some really special candles. I'm super excited. So these are actually a bestseller, but I've never made them before in the concrete vessels. So this is new. I've been working on this color for a while, but the candle, cashmere sweater, I've had in my line for the last 4 years. But as I said, I'd never made it in a concrete version. So I worked really hard over the summer on getting the right color and getting the vessel exactly how I wanted. And this is me making an actual batch of them. These particular candles do use cement all. Now you could make these with hydrostone. However, the pigment that I'm using that I really liked is an oxide pigment. So hydrostone, I have several articles on this. It tends to have trouble with oxide pigments, and it does better with like the French mineral pigments in general. But this particular one, since I am using the oxide colors, which is what you get if you buy your pigments from Direct Colors or Glob Marble, this 122, as well as all of their cement colors from Direct Colors and Glob Marble, which a lot of us use, they are going to be oxide pigments. So you can get away with some of them with cement all. It just really depends on the individual pigment. They all have like different compositions. So, but if you are struggling with efflorescence and you've tried all the other things that I mentioned in my article, the problem is probably the fact that you're using an oxide pigment. But with cement all, they work just fine. It just has to do with hydrostone's different composition. So I am just adding some titanium dioxide, as you just saw there on the left, and I usually do that with cement all just because it does tend to be more of a gray, which I don't mind. I just like it to be lightened a little bit usually. And what I find with cement all is I like to mix the pigments, the powdered pigments, into the dry cement all first. Now with hydrostone, I typically will do what's called the dry lake bed method, and I'll mix the pigments into my water and then I'll pour my hydrostone into that. But with cement all, I do find that this works better, and it just helps you to get the pigment thoroughly mixed in. Actually, both cases does, when you're mixing in with the water for hydrostone and with the dry cement for cement all. It's just a slightly different process because the hydrostone, for whatever reason, it just does better with the dry lake bed method. But regardless, mixing in your pigments before you have the concrete base with the water, that works really well to prevent streaking in your final product. You still can get streaking, it just kind of minimizes it. Now, what I like to do when I'm using two bowls, I'm going to be doing a swirl for this design, and I like to do them separately. Now, you can always mix them separately and then pour one bowl into another, and you'll get a beautiful result. However, you're going to end up getting more mixing within the two colors. And my favorite look personally when I do a two color swirl is I tend to, for whatever reason, like the colors more, I don't want to say blotchy or more thicker concentrations of each color. For some reason, it reminds me of like the sky on like a Charlie Brown episode or something, and it just has a beautiful nostalgic type of an appeal to me, almost just like a pastel sky. But you could absolutely mix the two colors in together. You're just going to get more kind of blending almost of the colors and less of the kind of blotchier cow almost like pigmentation. The device that you see me setting the spatulas on works really well too. It's made of all silicone. I have a whole, I want to say, shopping list of my Amazon storefront with all my favorite concrete supplies. If I'm ever using something in a video, it's probably in that list. So I try to make it easy for you guys if you're trying to find something that I'm using, like these silicone bowls or the spatulas. I find with cement-all and hydrostone, whenever you're making concrete stuff basically, that it helps to have everything silicone. So not just the like part of the spatula, but the whole spatula. It's just gonna make your cleanup so much easier, as well as the spoon rest. And then for the pigments, the bin that you can see off to the left, I also get those on Amazon, and they should be in my Amazon concrete shopping list. Again, I have my whole storefront linked below, so if you just click onto that, you'll see where there's a category called concrete, and then it'll have all my favorite supplies that I use for concrete candle making. Now, you can add both colors at the same time, or you can add one color and then the other color. I tend to do a combination of the two, just depending on how my concrete batter is, and it thickens up pretty fast, especially when you add the pigments. So what I like to do is I'll make usually a 4-batch recipe, and these are with the Modern Craft Lab 3-inch diameter, 3-inch tall tulip mold. So what I will do is it's usually, I want to say it's about 3 cups of cement-all that will make 4 of these vessels. And I do measure all my cement-all by the cup as well and by the tablespoon. I don't use a gram scale to measure out my water or my cement-all when I'm using this concrete base. Now, when I am using hydrostone, I definitely am using a scale to the gram for my water as well as my hydrostone, because I find that that medium is much more particular when you are adding in your water. It's much easier to overdo it with the water, whereas cement-all, I found it's much easier to kind of underdo it with the water, but that doesn't really matter because you just end up with a product that has even more structural integrity. You just don't want to underdo it with the water, and I find with hydrostone that's easier to have happen. Now, as the batter gets thicker, what I will end up doing is just kind of getting my spatula and really tapping a lot as I'm putting it in, and that is because as this batter gets thicker and thicker, the amount of air bubbles that get into this vessel are going to increase. Now, I always tell people that it's impossible to avoid them completely. You're gonna find sometimes you will, but like to strive to have that as your goal is not realistic. It's just part of the product. It's organic. Honest to God, customers do not mind air bubbles. I've never once had a customer complain, and it's kind of quite the opposite, where I've noticed when I take my concrete vessels to farmers markets and where customers can actually pick their exact vessel, they will tend, and this kills me every time, but they will tend to choose the vessels that oftentimes I think would be like the defective, not like in terms of structurally defective, but the ones that, you know, maybe the concrete didn't quite get mixed in with the pigment all the way in one spot, and so you see like a little bit of blotching, or the vessel has a few extra air bubbles than what I would consider acceptable. Customers at farmers markets tend to gravitate toward those. And several times when I've had a customer that I know really well that has, you know, purchased from me several times, I'll kind of call them out on it and say, you know, what made you like that vessel so much in particular? And usually the response that I get is that it has more character. And isn't that sort of a beautiful thing that customers in general, I found, tend to choose vessels that have more of what we might consider defects. Now, I will say, when I put them on the website, I'm very particular about that. So there's like a certain range that I'm okay with. And if it kind of exceeds that range, then I will actually put it in my batch to take to a farmer's market or to discount for like a live stream. Because I have customers on Instagram, for example, that you know, would prefer to get the vessel for a little bit of a discounted rate. And then I have customers at the farmer's market who tend to find that those vessels have more character. On the live streams, just to be clear, it's just like on the website, so they don't get to pick their exact vessel, but I'll just kind of say that, you know, these vessels are perfectly imperfect. So, which is essentially all of them, but again, outside of what I would consider my normal range of that. So I don't know if that's helpful to you guys at all, but I've found with concrete that it's really tested me because I tend to like things. If some of you haven't noticed, tend to have where I like things to be, I don't want to say perfect, but I consider myself, let me put it this way, I consider myself a recovering perfectionist. And concrete has been a really beautiful form of art for me because it has made me really appreciate something that's organic and that every single one is unique. And yeah, so I love it for that reason. I've come to love it for that reason. And it's interesting that a lot of customers naturally gravitate toward vessels that have even more sort of organic character. So I'm just making these again, and I have like 12 of these molds. So I will usually do all of them, and then I'll let these sit for around 3 hours, and then I will go ahead and demold. And then I'm just going ahead again, and after I've gotten the initial portion of these done, I just go through and top them all off. Now, I want to underscore this, and I tried to show it at the very beginning of the video. I always wear an asbestos grade respirator for making stuff with cement-all, and usually with hydrostone too. But especially with cement-all, its composition contains around 30% silica. And silica is something that you really don't want to be breathing in when it goes airborne, because it can lead to things like silicosis and increase your risk of lung cancer. Again, this doesn't affect our customers in the final product, but you as the maker really need to make sure you're protecting your lungs. And wearing an asbestos grade respirator is going to be really effective at doing that with those pink filters. And again, that respirator that I'm using as well as the filters, I should have in my Amazon storefront under concrete. But I'd consider that a gold standard, and you need to make sure that you're changing out those filters every couple of months. And if you're using it heavily, you want to change them out even more than that. So I bought like a big pack, and I got a pretty good price on them. And I make sure, because I make a lot of vessels, that I'm changing mine out usually like every month. So after about 3 hours, I go ahead and demold these. And with cement-all, I do not find that I have to wear gloves to demold. With hydrostone, I noticed that my hypothesis is that the salts that are in your hands and in your skin interact with the hydrostone because it has a different composition than cement-all. It's primarily a gypsum cement, and it can cause it to have like increased amounts of streaking. Now, you can get streaking on hydrostone for other reasons too. But with cement-all, I don't find that's the case at all. And I've never had an issue just unmolding them without gloves. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy with how these turned out, you guys. Wait until you see when these cure, they become even more beautiful. I thought this color would complement it really well. When it dries, you'll see it's kind of like a berry tone, but actually in the video here, it looks more raspberry because the vessels, again, they're darker and because of the water content. But as that water evaporates, I usually let them sit for a good week, sometimes 2 weeks, before I seal them. And to seal, I just use 2 coats of Earth-Safe Finishes preserver/sealer on the inside. You don't need to seal the outside of any of these vessels. Some people do it for the aesthetics. I sometimes do, but normally when I'm making these color swirl ones, I like the matte look, and I'll just seal the inside. But yeah, when this dries, it becomes this beautiful, like, soft pastel, almost like a light lavender raspberry type of a tone. And then off to the left, I did also make some of these in the oval molds as well as in the 4-inch tulips. I didn't film that, but I will have a couple on the website. I'm really excited to offer those. This particular fragrance that I'm using, and I'll have the exact formula in my Patreon, so if you're interested in the exact pigment formula as well as the whole candle formula. That will be available in my Patreon, which is linked below. But the fragrance that I'm using is really popular. It's like a cocoa butter cashmere, and it has like that kind of sheer vanilla base note to it. It smells warm and cozy, and like you are cuddled up with your cat with a cashmere sweater on, and the snow is falling outside your window. It is the most beautiful, picturesque fragrance that to me just screams elegance and comfort. So as you can see here, as these have dried, they've become just this beautiful, soft, kind of berry, lavender, cozy cashmere type of a tone. And I am really, really happy with how these came out. This will definitely be a staple for me. These candles will go live on the website on Friday, November 9th at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. That is 11 Central, 10 Mountain, 9 Pacific. And there's very limited quantities. I hope everyone who wants one is able to get one. I'm really excited about it. I love doing these limited edition candles where I make a special vessel for that candle in particular. And again, the whole formula as well as a step-by-step is available in my Patreon, which is also linked below. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Thumbs up just lets me know that you want to see more of this type of content, and thumbs down just lets me know that you want to see something else. And either one is fine, but I really appreciate getting your feedback. And I'm sending all you guys peace, love, and light. And I'm wishing all of you happy candle making. I would like to take the time to thank my patrons for their incredible support.